Gamer Seuss channel. I'm Doc, and we're going to have another episode of Game Time. I'm not sure how long the actual episode will be. This is just me this time around. We haven't done Game Time in a little bit. We've been on a bit of a hiatus, but I wanted to just talk about a couple of movies and a TV show that have hit my radar. Of course, one of the number one movies out there right now in talks anyway is James Gunn's new start to the DCU, Superman. And so I had a chance. It is now available to stream, so I had a chance to do that. And so we'll talk a little bit about Superman here. Let me bring that up there so you can see. Um, Corn's what I thought made an interesting Clark Kent. They went the extra mile with his hairdo in the movie, so that when he was Clark, he had a much more curly do on top, not the classic cowlick Superman look. So, in addition to the glasses, there's an extra level of subterfuge there. I thought Nathan Fillion made an excellent Guy Gardner. Of course, if you're familiar with comic books, Guy Gardner is the rudest of all the Green Lanterns. He's very abrasive, very harsh, very full of himself, very egotistical. And Nathan Fillion himself is not like that, I think, but he played the role really, really well. Nathan Fillion was an excellent choice for Guy Gardner, and I want to see what he does further on. And as with a lot of movies, Nathan Fillion does a lot of movies with Alan Tudyk, and in this movie, the voice of one of the robots in Superman's Fortress of Solitude, Gary or Four, uh, is Alan Tudyk. So Alan Tudyk does have a bit of a cameo. If you've seen, like, in the Creature Commandos, Alan Tudyk voices Dr. Phosphorus. Well, and he's known to voice in animated DC shows people like Clayface. Here, Alan Tudyk voices Four, or Gary, as he gets named at the end of the movie. I'm not going to do any real spoilers for the show. I will say Superman is kind of a not a high priority movie for me because of the fact that Superman has never been a real high priority character. My problem with Superman has always been the fact that he's too much. He started out much simpler. He was like faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings with a single bound. Uh, Now he's nigh on invulnerable. He can fly or run so fast that he can reverse time. He's been known to actually change the rotation of the Earth with his flight. He can breathe frost. He can shoot laser beams out of his eyes. He's both got X-ray, telescopic, and and microscopic vision. So he's got all these things, and part of that is that later on in the DC's Who's Who, they put a power in Superman that isn't really advertised, and it's basically like an unstable mutation. And what it means is if he needs a power, he gets it. He adapts and gets new powers as they're needed, and that's why he has so many different powers in movies and TV and everything, and it's different portrayals. Now he went from being able to leap, which was like a little bit more better than the Hulk, to being able to fly and hover and do all that. He can breathe in outer space. He can with yellow sun energy can heal if anything can hurt them. They had to come up with weaknesses for him. Um, that's where kryptonite was born, of course. Classic green kryptonite can hurt Superman, and then there are actually 9 colors of kryptonite, and each one does something different to him. Red kryptonite changes his personality, often turns him more of like an evil aspect, and so on. So there's different kryptonites out there. Some kryptonites can give humans powers. I like in the TV show Smallville, all kryptonite gave humans some of their powers, but in the comic books, it was different colored kryptonite gave powers. It wasn't just the green kryptonite. Um, so Superman they had to invent a weakness for him. I mean, it's not as cheesy as like old school Green Lantern, which the original Green Lantern was vulnerable to wood, and then after that, the color yellow. I mean, they didn't do great when it came to some of the older DC universe weaknesses for their superheroes. I mean, at least like Martian Manhunter, he's pyrophobic. He's afraid of fire because of a traumatic thing that happened when his family died on Mars, and so it triggers a panic attack basically, and that's why fire is his weakness. That makes more sense than some of the other weaknesses out there. And that's why I've always had a problem with Superman. It's also why Superman has never really been the true flagship character for DC as much as they have tried time and time again to make him the flagship character, because he is their most powerful non-magic character in the universe of DC, but he's not their flagship character. The character most people identify with DC universe is probably Batman, and contrary to Superman, Batman has no powers whatsoever. His powers are training, intellect, and money. Those are his powers. He's like the Tony Stark of the DC universe. I mean, like Tony Stark, he's rich. I mean, phenomenally rich. Like Tony Stark, he's an inventor and a thinker and everything. The bat suit in several iterations is a type of armor, not quite as extensive as the Iron Man suit, but still it's his gadgets and his suit and everything that protect him and his psychological combat, because he fights the brains of the villains. He inspires fear and uses that to put them off their game. That's why he chose the bat as his emblem, because it's a primordial fear kind of item. It'd be like choosing spiders or snakes or something of that nature to deal with, and that's what Superman is now. And the Superman movie, the thing that I did like about the movie is it did not go back and rehash the Superman origin story yet again. Uh, Constantly, when you go into these franchises and stuff and they reboot them, they have to rehash the whole origin story all over again. Superman's origin story is pretty much well known, with some slight tweaks. There's some things like are his parents still alive? Yes or no? His human parents, his Kryptonian parents are generally dead, and he can see him as holograms in the Fortress of Solitude or in his ship. But yeah, they don't rehash a lot of the origin story. They do have some of those elements. I mean, they do have holograms of his parents, although in this one it is a nice thing that his parents are not speaking English in the holograms. They're speaking Kryptonian. So, and it is actually a plot point. Like I said, I'm not really going to go into heavy spoilers on this, but my general impression is this is not a bad offering for Superman. I think there's some distinct differences. Like They include Crypto the Superdog, which is coincidentally Supergirl's dog, not Superman's dog. But they use a shaggier, curlier haired version than the classic, streamlined, you know, handsome dog that I think is generally portrayed in most versions of the Super Pet. He's also more rambunctious, less intelligent seeming, less trained, less controlled. But they use that in the story, so that's also kind of interesting. The villain, of course, is one of the most classic villains, really ultimately in Superman because it's Lex Luthor. I'm not going to go into, like I said, spoilers, but Superman is the overall architect of Superman's antithesis. He helps orchestrate everything that's going on with Superman. And it actually opens at the end of a fight scene. At the end of a fight scene, pretty much. There's a couple of things of text in the beginning, and then boom, he lands up in the Arctic snow, injured, and that's in most of the previews. So I'm not spoiling anything there at all. And you see in the previews how Crypto comes and drags him away, and that's kind of explained more in the movie. Overall, I would give this movie a 7 out of 10, which for Superman is actually pretty good for me. I think that Superman lacks a lot of gravitas. He lacks a lot of depth. He's too goody two shoes. He's too ideal. He's the Boy Scout. He's the ultimate Boy Scout, and they need to give him some humanization, a little bit, humanize him. Now the other characters in the movie are great. Like I said, Guy Gardner is fantastic as a Green Lantern. Hawk Girl has got some anger there, which is big if you remember the Thanagarians from the Justice League. The Hawk Girl and Hawkman are from the planet Thanagar, and they have the wings and the power maces and a lot of anger. They're warriors, and Hawk Girl is kind of portrayed like that. And then Mr. Terrific, which if you watch the Arrow TV show, you were introduced to Mr. Terrific if you weren't a big comic book person. And this is another iteration. He's one of the smartest men in the DC universe, and he uses his T spheres to do things. He like flies around on a seat that's powered by the T spheres, and he uses the T spheres to do various things, to fly around as basically orb weapons, kind of similar to the orb in Phantasm, but they don't necessarily have blades popping out and stuff. If you ever saw the Phantasm movies, there's an orb that flies around, and then there's blades and things that come out of it, and it's used to do different kinds of brutal killings. Well, Mr. Terrific uses his T spheres to fight, but he also is a genius, and he analyzes the tech of, like, for instance, Lex Luthor and things, and it's a great portrayal, I think, of Mr. Terrific. Um, there's even an amusing scene. This isn't a spoiler. It's just kind of amusing. There's a point where he's with Lois, and he's going to get into his T ship to go help Superman, and the garage door opening to get in to where he stores is like the slowest garage door in history. And yet, and Lois has to say, you have a basically a flying saucer type ship, but you can't get a faster garage door, which is kind of amusing.